Liam Archer sat in the sterile quiet of his home office, the glow of the monitor painting his face in a pale, funereal light. He clicked the mouse one last time, sending the email that would detonate his life as he knew it. He took a slow, deliberate breath, the air tasting of ozone and finality. The room, once a vibrant hub of architectural genius, was now a tomb for a life he was about to bury. On the screen, a single line confirmed the transaction. Transfer complete. Tens of millions of dollars, the culmination of a decade of relentless work, innovation, and sacrifice, now sat waiting in a newly established trust. To the outside world, however, his firm, Archer Designs, had just collapsed under the weight of a sudden market downturn. He had spent the last 3 months meticulously crafting this illusion, redirecting funds, creating phantom debts, and leaving a digital paper trail that screamed insolvency. It was a masterpiece of financial architecture, a structure built of lies to reveal a deeper truth. He heard the key in the front door. Chloe was home. He closed the laptop, the faint click echoing in the silence. He composed his features into a mask of weary defeat. This was the first act. He walked out to meet her, his heart a cold, steady drum against his ribs. She looked up, her smile faltering as she saw his expression. "Liam, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost." He didn't speak for a moment, letting the silence stretch, letting it do the heavy work. He let his shoulders slump. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of distraction she knew well. "It's over, Chloe," he said, his voice a carefully constructed monotone, hollowed out and brittle. "The firm, it's all gone. We lost everything." Her face crumpled. The curated elegance of her expression, the one she wore for her clients and her boss, dissolved into raw, naked panic. Her expensive handbag slipped from her shoulder, hitting the polished hardwood floor with a dull thud. Disbelief warred with a dawning horror in her eyes. "Everything? What do you mean, everything? The contracts? The Kensington project?" He shook his head slowly. "The funding was pulled. It caused a domino effect. We're bankrupt." The word hung in the air between them, ugly and absolute. Chloe stared at him, but he could see she wasn't truly seeing him. Her mind was racing, calculating, assessing the damage not to their shared life, but to her own. He saw the flicker in her eyes, the moment her concern for him was eclipsed by her fear for her lifestyle. She wrung her hands, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. "Oh my God, Liam. Oh my God. What are we going to do? The house, my car." He watched her, a scientist observing a predictable chemical reaction. He had loved this woman, had built his world around her, but he had been blind. He saw now that the foundation was sand. She paced the length of the hallway, her initial shock curdling into a frantic, desperate energy. I need to think," she stammered, not looking at him. She pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. He knew who she was going to call. He had predicted it to the second in the leather-bound journal that now lay locked in his briefcase. Her first instinct was not to comfort her husband, not to hold him and say, "We'll get through this together." Her first instinct was to reach out to her safety net, her boss. The man who had spent the last 2 years dripping poison into her ear about her husband's unrealistic career. She turned away, hiding the screen from him as if ashamed, but not ashamed enough to stop. I need to talk to Julian," she whispered, as if the name itself was a prayer. "He'll know what to do. He's good with these things." Liam said nothing. He simply stood there, a statue of feigned despair, and watched his wife walk into the other room to make the call that would seal her fate. He heard her muffled, tearful voice. He heard the name Julian, spoken with a desperate reverence. The man who thought Liam Archer was a failure was about to be asked to save him. Liam almost smiled. The trap was set. Julian thought he was the king of this city. He didn't know he was just a pawn in a game he wasn't even aware he was playing. Within 3 months, his entire world would be dismantled, and Liam would be the one holding the architect's plans. We love a good story about someone getting what they deserve, don't we? It's a tale as old as time. If you're enjoying this story already, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. Now let's watch what happens when a man of true substance decides to teach a lesson to those who only value the superficial. Chloe came back into the room 20 minutes later. Her face was still blotchy from crying, but a measure of composure had returned, borrowed from the man on the other end of the line. Julian's confidence was a potent drug, and she was a willing addict. She had her fix. "Julian wants to help," she announced, her voice filled with a fragile relief that grated on Liam's nerves. "He said we shouldn't panic. He wants to meet with you tomorrow. He thinks he might have something for you." The offer was so predictable, so perfectly in character, that Liam had to fight back a genuine laugh. Of course Julian would want to meet. The scent of another man's failure was an aphrodisiac to him. The opportunity to play the magnanimous savior to the husband of his beautiful assistant was too delicious to pass up. "Something for me?" Liam asked, infusing his voice with just the right amount of wounded pride. "What does that mean, Chloe? A handout?" Chloe flinched at his tone. "No, of course not, Liam. Don't be like that. He just wants to see if he can help. He respects you. He respects your talent." It was a lie, and they both knew it. Julian Croft, a real estate mogul who built glass and steel monoliths devoid of soul, had nothing but contempt for Liam's architectural philosophy. Liam designed spaces that lived and breathed with their inhabitants, buildings that told a story. Julian built monuments to his own ego. He'd once referred to Liam's award-winning library design as a quaint little book barn. The insult, delivered with a smug chuckle at one of Julian's ostentatious dinner parties, had been a pivotal moment for Liam. It was then he had started to see the cracks not only in Julian's character, but in his own marriage. Chloe had laughed along, a little too loudly, eager to please her boss. "He wants to meet at the Chancel Club for lunch," Chloe continued, oblivious to the storm of memory passing through Liam's mind. 1 o'clock. The Chancel Club. Another calculated move. It was Julian's cathedral of power, a place where membership fees were astronomical and deals were brokered over $30 cocktails. It was a place Liam had always refused to go, calling it a mausoleum for men with more money than taste. For him to go there now, cap in hand, would be the ultimate act of submission. It was perfect. "All right," Liam said, his voice heavy with resignation. "I'll go, if it will make you feel better." Chloe rushed to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Oh, thank you, Liam. I knew you'd see sense. Julian will fix this. You'll see. Everything is going to be okay." He held her, the scent of her expensive perfume filling his senses. It was the same scent she'd worn the night of the book barn comment. He felt nothing. The warmth he'd once felt in her embrace was gone, replaced by a chilling, analytical distance. He was an architect studying a compromised structure, noting every fault line, every point of stress, preparing for a controlled demolition. The next day, Liam dressed not in his usual attire of bespoke, comfortable linen shirts and tailored trousers, but in a suit that was a few years old. It was still a good suit, but it lacked the crisp, confident edge of his current wardrobe. It was the suit of a man who was trying, a man who was worried. He deliberately chose a tie that was just a little too plain. Every detail was a brushstroke in the portrait of a man brought low. He drove their second car, a sensible sedan, instead of the classic sports car he was restoring, the one Julian openly coveted and sneered at in equal measure. He arrived at the Chancel Club precisely at 1 o'clock. The valet, accustomed to seeing gleaming Bentleys and roaring Ferraris, gave his modest car a dismissive glance. Liam handed him the keys, his face a neutral mask. He stepped inside. The club was an oppressive symphony of dark wood, polished brass, and hushed, self-important voices. It smelled of old money and new arrogance. Julian was holding court at a prime table in the center of the grand dining room, a Roman emperor in a Zegna suit. He saw Liam approaching and gestured to the empty chair opposite him, a lazy flick of the wrist that was both a welcome and a dismissal. "Liam, glad you could make it," Julian said, his voice booming just enough to draw the attention of the surrounding tables. "Tough times, I hear," Chloe told me. "Terrible business." He didn't offer to shake Liam's hand. He simply leaned back, steepling his fingers, his expression a careful blend of sympathy and smug satisfaction. He was enjoying this. Liam could feel the waves of it rolling off him. "Julian," Liam said, his voice quiet, forcing the bigger man to lean forward slightly. "Thanks for seeing me." Of course, of course. Chloe's part of the family at Croft Enterprises. By extension, so are you." He smiled, a flash of perfectly white, predatory teeth. "Now, let's get you a drink. You look like you need one. A stiff one." Julian signaled a waiter with a snap of his fingers. "2 Macallan 25s, on my tab." It was a power play. The drink cost more than some people's weekly grocery bill. It was meant to establish the dynamic from the outset. I am the provider. You are the supplicant. Liam inclined his head. "Thank you." He let the silence sit for a moment, watching Julian preen. He glanced around the room, taking in the faces of the city's so-called elite. He knew many of them. He had designed homes for 2 of them, and had turned down a commission from a third because the man wanted a house that was impressive rather than livable. The man was now sitting 2 tables away, laughing loudly at one of Julian's cronies. The drinks arrived. Julian raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, the toast dripping with condescension. Liam met his gaze and raised his own glass. "To new beginnings," he repeated, his voice even. He took a small sip. The expensive scotch felt like ash in his mouth. "So," Julian began, setting his glass down with a heavy thud. "Chloe gave me the broad strokes. Firm went belly up. It happens. The market's a beast. Not everyone is built to tame it." He leaned forward, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Between you and me, Liam, your business model was always artistic, niche. You can't build an empire on niche. You need scale, volume. You build what the market wants, not what some professor of aesthetics thinks is pretty." Liam listened, his expression unchanged. He let the insults wash over him. Each one was a confirmation. Each one was a nail Julian was hammering into his own coffin. "I built things that last," Liam said quietly. "I built homes, not assets." Julian chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "That's adorable, really. But homes don't pay the bills on the scale you and Chloe are accustomed to. Assets do. That's lesson number 1. He took a large gulp of his scotch. "Look, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to help. Chloe is a phenomenal asset to my company. She's loyal, she's smart, and she has impeccable taste. I want to keep her happy, and she's not happy when you're not happy." The implication was clear. Chloe's happiness was now his responsibility. He was inserting himself directly into the heart of their marriage. "I appreciate that, Julian," Liam said. He had to hand it to him. The man's arrogance was a force of nature. It was so pure, so unburdened by self-awareness, that it was almost fascinating. "So, here's what I'm thinking," Julian continued, leaning back again, expansive. "I can't salvage your firm. It's a dead brand. But you have a skill. You can draw. You understand blueprints. My design division is always looking for competent draftsmen." Draftsman. The word was a deliberate, carefully chosen insult. It demoted him from architect to technician, from visionary to cog. It was the architectural equivalent of calling a surgeon a butcher. "I have a spot for you," Julian said, smiling that predatory smile again. "It's not glamorous. You'd be working under my head of design, reviewing schematics for our commercial towers, making sure the plumbing lines up, that sort of thing." But it's a steady paycheck, good benefits. It would take the pressure off Chloe. He paused, letting the offer hang in the air. The pity job, the ultimate act of dominance. He would not only save Liam from ruin, but he would also own him. Liam would come to work every day in a building bearing Julian's name, a constant reminder of who had saved him, of who was in control. Liam stared into his glass, swirling the amber liquid. He could feel Julian's eyes on him, waiting for the gratitude, the pathetic, tearful acceptance. He could feel the eyes of the other diners, who had been discreetly watching the drama unfold. He looked up, meeting Julian's gaze directly. He let a flicker of something, desperation, hope, cross his face. I don't know what to say, Julian, he began. This is very generous. Julian's smile widened. He had him. Think nothing of it, he boomed. We take care of our own. You start Monday. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in humiliation, each day a new lesson in submission. Liam didn't take the job, not yet. He told Julian he needed a week to wind down the affairs of the firm, a phrase that made Julian smirk. In reality, Liam was finalizing the last details of his grand design. He met with lawyers, with wealth managers, with the executive board of the multinational corporation, Global Axiom, that had acquired his company. They hadn't just bought his portfolio, they had bought his brain. He was now the head of their new Visionary Design division, a semi-autonomous unit with a 9-figure budget to acquire and develop architecturally significant properties worldwide. His first recommendation, which they had enthusiastically accepted, was the strategic acquisition of undervalued commercial real estate in this very city. Properties with lazy management and untapped potential. Properties like the ones owned by Croft Enterprises. While Liam was orchestrating this corporate takeover, his life at home became a theater of pity. Chloe treated him with a cloying, suffocating kindness that was worse than any argument. She would pat his hand at dinner, telling him not to worry. Julian says the first few weeks will be the hardest, but you'll find your footing, she'd say, as if he were a schoolboy starting at a new prep school. She began making decisions unilaterally. She talked about selling the house, his house, the one he had designed and built with his own hands, and moving into a smaller apartment, something more manageable. She spoke of it as a foregone conclusion. She was nesting in the ruins of his former life, feathering a new, smaller nest under Julian's protective wing. The second major humiliation came at Julian's annual summer gala, a lavish affair held at his sprawling lakeside estate. Chloe had insisted they go. We have to show our faces, she'd argued. We can't just hide. Julian expects us to be there. It's important to show him you're grateful. Liam agreed. Of course he agreed. This was a crucial scene in the play. He wore the same, slightly too old suit. Chloe, by contrast, wore a stunning new dress, one he knew they couldn't afford on her salary alone. A gift from Julian, no doubt. A little bonus for being such a loyal asset. The estate was obscene, a monument to bad taste and excessive wealth. Marble fountains gushed, champagne flowed from towers of crystal flutes, and a string quartet sawed away at Vivaldi with bland proficiency. Julian greeted them at the entrance, placing a proprietary hand on the small of Chloe's back. Chloe, you look breathtaking, he purred, his eyes lingering on her for a moment too long. Then he turned to Liam. And Liam, good to see you out and about. Chin up, my boy. This is a night to forget your troubles. He clapped Liam on the shoulder, a gesture of feigned camaraderie that was really an assertion of physical dominance. Throughout the night, Julian made a point of introducing Liam to his circle of sycophants. The introductions were always the same. This is Liam Archer, brilliant architect, you know. Had a spot of bad luck with his firm. He'll be joining the Croft family on Monday. We take care of our own. Each introduction was a small degradation, a public stripping of his former identity. He was no longer Liam Archer, the award-winning architect. He was Liam Archer, the charity case. He saw the pity in people's eyes, the quick, dismissive glances. They would shake his hand limply, murmur a few meaningless pleasantries, and then turn their attention back to Julian, the true center of gravity in this universe. Liam endured it all with a placid, almost unnerving calm. He would nod, smile faintly, and say little. Inside, he was a recording device, capturing every nuance, every condescending smile, every patronizing word. He was gathering evidence for a trial no one but him knew was happening. He held a glass of mineral water, the bubbles rising in a silent, steady stream. In his pocket, his fingers brushed against a small, smooth object, a custom-made flash drive, shaped like a miniature drafting compass. It was made of titanium and contained the entire digital blueprint of Julian's downfall. The contracts, the acquisition schedules, the market analysis reports that identified the fatal weaknesses in Julian's empire. It was his symbolic object, a talisman of his hidden power. The lowest point of the evening came when Julian gathered a small group on the terrace overlooking the lake. He was telling a story about a recent business deal, gesticulating wildly, his voice full of self-congratulation. And the guy said to me, "Julian, we can't build it that fast." And I said, "That's the difference between you and me. You see a building, I see a skyline." Some people are artists, content to paint one little canvas. Others, we paint the whole world. He paused and then gestured toward Liam, who was standing at the edge of the group. "Take my friend Liam here. He designs beautiful little houses, works of art, but you can't live in a work of art. Well, you can, but you can't get rich from it." The group laughed. It was a cruel, dismissive sound. Liam looked at Chloe. She was smiling, her eyes fixed on Julian, her face glowing with admiration. She didn't even glance in Liam's direction. She was no longer his partner. She was a member of the audience, applauding his public execution. That was the moment the last vestiges of Liam's love for her died. It wasn't a fiery death. It was a quiet, cold expiration. He felt it leave him, like a breath held for too long. He was free. He looked out at the lake, at the moonlight shimmering on the dark water. The structure of his old life was gone. Now he could build something new, something stronger, something on a foundation of truth. He turned his attention back to Julian, who was now pontificating about the importance of killer instinct. Liam watched him, his expression unreadable. He let the man's voice wash over him. He heard every word, but all he was really listening to was the ticking of a clock that only he could hear. The clock was counting down to Julian's reckoning, and the alarm was set for Monday. The weekend was a strange, suspended limbo. Chloe was buoyant, energized by the gala and the reflected glory of Julian's world. She talked excitedly about their new chapter, mapping out a future where Liam's steady, if unimpressive paycheck from Croft Enterprises would provide them with a stable, secure life. She saw it as a recovery. Liam saw it as the final, damning piece of evidence of her character. He spent most of Saturday in his workshop, the one place that was still truly his. It was a converted garage, filled with the scent of sawdust, metal, and oil. Here, he wasn't a failed architect or a charity case. He was a creator. He worked on the vintage sports car, his hands moving with practiced, methodical grace. He wasn't just restoring an engine, he was calming his mind, centering himself before the coming storm. Each cleaned part, each tightened bolt, was an act of preparation. He was building a machine that worked perfectly, just as he had built the plan that would dismantle Julian's. On Sunday evening, Chloe approached him as he was cleaning his hands. "Julian's invited us to a small dinner tomorrow night," she said, her voice bright, "at his penthouse. Just a few people, to celebrate your first day." Liam paused, wiping his hands slowly with a rag. A dinner, on his first day. The arrogance was breathtaking. Julian wasn't content with giving him the job. He wanted to put him on display, the prize from his latest hunt, mounted on the wall for all to see. "It's a bit much, isn't it?" Liam asked, his voice neutral. A dinner party for a new draftsman? Chloe's face tightened. Don't call yourself that, Liam. It's a respectable position. And it's not a bit much. It's Julian being thoughtful. He's welcoming you to the team. The least you can do is be gracious. Gracious. He had been gracious for weeks. He had swallowed insults that would have choked a lesser man. He had smiled while his wife's admiration was transferred to another. He had played the part of the grateful pauper with an actor's skill. His capacity for grace was about to expire. All right, Chloe, he said with a sigh that was only partially feigned. We'll go. Her expression softened instantly. Good, it will be nice. A new start for us. As she walked away, Liam looked down at his hands. They were clean now, but he could still feel the phantom grit of his work. He was ready. The final act was about to begin. Monday morning, Liam did not go to the gleaming Croft Tower downtown. He did not report to the design division to be handed a set of plumbing schematics. Instead, he drove to a discreet, unmarked office building in a quieter part of the city. This was the temporary headquarters for Global Axiom's new division. His division. He was greeted not as a supplicant, but as a leader. Morning, Mr. Archer, his new assistant, a sharp, efficient woman named Evelyn, said as he walked in. The board is waiting for you in the conference room. They're patched in from Zurich. Liam nodded, handing her his briefcase. Inside it, nestled beside his laptop, was the leather-bound journal. Evelyn, would you do me a favor? Please have a courier deliver this to Mr. Julian Croft at Croft Tower. It should arrive no later than 7 p.m. He pointed to a single, crisp envelope he'd placed on top of the journal. This is for him. Of course, Mr. Archer, she said, taking the briefcase. Is there a specific message to include? Liam smiled, a genuine, cold smile. No message. The contents are the message. The envelope contained a single sheet of paper. It was a formal notice of lease termination for the top 3 floors of Croft Tower, the floors that housed Julian's own executive offices and his penthouse apartment. The building itself was one of the assets Global Axiom had acquired in its first wave of strategic purchases, a fact that had been kept under the tightest of wraps. The new landlord was evicting the tenant for breach of several clauses related to financial instability. Instability that Liam's team had expertly uncovered. It was a surgical strike aimed at the heart of Julian's perceived power. His castle was no longer his. Liam spent the day in meetings, his mind sharp and focused. He was in his element, discussing billion-dollar projects, shaping skylines on a global scale, operating on a level Julian could only dream of. He was not a draftsman. He was a master builder. At 5 o'clock, his phone buzzed. It was Chloe. Liam, where are you? I've been calling. The dinner is at 7:30. You need to come home and get ready. Her voice was edged with irritation. I'm on my way, he said calmly. I was just wrapping things up. Wrapping what up? She asked, a note of suspicion in her voice. I thought you were done by 5. Just some personal administration, he replied smoothly. I'll be home soon. He drove home, not in the sensible sedan, but in the newly restored sports car. The engine roared to life with a throaty, powerful sound. It was a beautiful machine, a classic piece of design and engineering, brought back to life by patient, skilled hands. When he pulled into the driveway, Chloe came out to meet him, her face a mask of confusion and anger. What is this? Where did you get the money to fix this thing? We're supposed to be saving every penny. It was already paid for, Chloe, he said, getting out of the car. He was wearing not the old, tired suit, but a new one, exquisitely tailored from dark, rich wool. It was a suit that spoke not of desperation, but of quiet, unassailable authority. What is going on, Liam? She demanded, her voice rising. What are you doing? I'm getting ready for dinner, he said. He walked past her into the house. You should get ready too. We don't want to be late. I have a feeling it's going to be an unforgettable evening. His calm confidence was more unnerving to her than any angry outburst would have been. She watched him, a deep sense of unease beginning to replace her irritation. Something was wrong. The man who had been broken and defeated for weeks was gone. In his place was a stranger, a man of formidable, chilling composure. As she got ready, her anxiety grew. She called Julian. "He's acting so strange, Julian. He's wearing this power suit, and he fixed his car. I don't understand." She could hear the smile in Julian's voice. "Relax, sweetheart. It's just a little show of pride, posturing. He's probably terrified and trying to puff out his chest. It's pathetic, but it's understandable. Don't worry, by the end of the night, he'll know his place. I'll handle it." Reassured, Chloe finished her preparations. But as they drove to Julian's penthouse in silence, the powerful engine of Liam's car, a low growl beneath them, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were not driving toward a celebration, but an execution. And for the first time, she wasn't sure who was the one on trial. Julian's penthouse was the apex of his world, a glass box in the sky with panoramic views of the city he believed he owned. The decor was aggressively modern, all sharp angles, gleaming chrome, and oversized abstract art that shouted its price tag. There were 6 other people there, 2 of Julian's senior executives with their glossy, silent wives, and a city councilman Julian kept on his payroll. It was an intimate gathering designed for maximum impact. As Liam and Chloe entered, Julian strode forward, a magnanimous king greeting his subjects. He was holding a glass of champagne, his face flushed with power and self-satisfaction. "Liam! Chloe! Welcome!" He kissed Chloe on the cheek, then turned to Liam, his eyes sweeping over the expensive suit. He smirked. "Well, well, look at you, dressed for success. I love the optimism. That's the spirit we need at Croft Enterprises." He clapped Liam on the shoulder again, but this time, Liam didn't yield. He stood firm, his presence solid and unmovable. Julian's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. He felt like he had slapped a granite wall. He quickly recovered, steering them toward the others. "Everyone, you know my brilliant executive assistant Chloe, and this is her husband, Liam Archer. Liam's our newest recruit in the design division, starting a new chapter." The announcement was met with polite, knowing smiles. Liam was immediately categorized and dismissed. He was Chloe's husband. The new guy. The project. Liam simply nodded to the group, his eyes calm and observant. He accepted a glass of water from a passing server, ignoring the champagne. The conversation flowed around him, a river of arrogant chatter about stock prices, zoning variances, and expensive vacations. Liam remained on the periphery, a silent observer. Chloe, sensing his withdrawal, shot him anxious, pleading looks. "Participate," her eyes screamed. "Try." Just before 7 p.m., Julian's personal butler approached him, holding a small package. "Sir, this just arrived for you by courier." Julian took the package, a flicker of curiosity on his face. "For me?" He tore it open. Inside was Liam's leather-bound journal. Julian looked at it, then at Liam, a questioning frown on his face. "Is this some kind of joke, Archer? A diary?" "It's not a diary, Julian. It's a project journal," Liam said, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the nearby chatter. "I thought you might find the recent entries illuminating." Intrigued and enjoying the theater of it, Julian opened the journal. His eyes scanned the first page of the latest entry, dated 3 months ago. It was a detailed projection of his firm's collapse. He read his own name. He read Chloe's name. He read predictions of his own behavior, described with cold, architectural precision. His amusement vanished, replaced by a confused anger. "What the hell is this?" he snarled. "Is this a threat?" Before Liam could answer, the butler reappeared, his face pale. He was holding an envelope. "Sir, this was with the journal. It seems urgent." Julian snatched the envelope and ripped it open. He read the single sheet of paper inside. His face went slack. The color drained from it, leaving a pasty, gray pallor. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the suddenly silent room. Everyone stared at him. "What is it, Julian?" one of the executives asked. Julian didn't answer. He simply stared at the paper, his mind unable to process the words. Lease termination, breach of contract, 30 days to vacate. He looked up at Liam, his eyes wild with disbelief and fury. "You," he whispered, the word choked with venom. "This is you. This is impossible." Liam took a calm sip of his water. "It's very possible, Julian. When you build on a weak foundation, the entire structure is compromised. That's lesson number one, isn't it?" He was throwing Julian's own words back at him. The room was frozen. Chloe looked back and forth between the two men, her face a canvas of pure confusion and terror. "Liam, what did you do?" she breathed. "I didn't do anything, Chloe," Liam said, turning his cool gaze on her. "I just allowed an unstable structure to fail under its own weight." He then turned his attention back to the stunned group. "Julian seems to be having a moment. Perhaps I can clarify the situation." Liam's voice was no longer quiet. It filled the room with an effortless authority that commanded absolute attention. "For the past year, I have been in negotiations to sell my firm, Archer Designs, not because it was failing, but because it was so successful that one of the world's largest development corporations, Global Axiom, wanted to acquire my design philosophy and my brand. The deal was finalized 3 months ago." A collective gasp went through the room. "I am now the executive president of the Global Axiom Visionary Design Division, a new branch of the company with a mandate to acquire and develop properties of architectural significance. Our initial operating budget is significant." He paused, letting that sink in. "Our first major acquisition, which we completed last week, was a portfolio of commercial real estate in this city that we identified as being poorly managed and ripe for redevelopment. That portfolio included this building." He gestured around the opulent penthouse. "So you see, Julian, I'm not here to celebrate my new job as your draftsman. I'm here as your new landlord." The revelation landed with the force of a physical blow. The two executives stared at Liam, their faces a mixture of awe and horror as they began to grasp the implications. The city councilman looked like he was about to be sick. Julian, however, exploded. "You're lying," he roared, his face contorted in a mask of rage. "You think you can come into my home and spew these fantasies? You're a broke, washed-up nobody." "Am I?" Liam replied, his calm a stark contrast to Julian's fury. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times. He then turned it toward the two executives. On the screen was the official press release from Global Axiom, slated to go live in the morning. It announced the acquisition of Croft's key properties and Liam Archer's appointment. Their faces went ashen. They knew it was real. "You see, Julian," Liam continued, his voice dropping to a conversational, almost gentle tone that was terrifying in its lack of malice. "You made a critical error. You assessed my worth based on what you could see. You saw a small firm, an artistic temperament, and a quiet man. You didn't see the structure behind it. You don't understand that the most powerful forces are often the ones that are unseen." He then turned his gaze to Chloe. She was staring at him as if he were a complete stranger. Her world had been turned upside down in the span of 5 minutes. The man she had pitied, the man she had betrayed, was not the man standing before her. "You wanted me to be gracious, Chloe," he said, his voice soft but unforgiving. "For months I have been. I graciously accepted the insults. I graciously listened to my wife defend the man who disrespected her husband. I graciously allowed everyone in this room and in your entire circle to believe I was a failure." He took a step closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "I recorded every slight, every condescending remark, Every moment you chose his world over ours. It's all in the journal, Chloe. A project journal detailing the demolition of a relationship. Julian, finally grasping the full, catastrophic scope of the situation, lunged at Liam. "I'll kill you!" he screamed, his face purple with rage. But he was clumsy, his movements slowed by shock and alcohol. Liam sidestepped him effortlessly, like a matador avoiding a charging bull. Julian stumbled, crashing into a fragile glass sculpture, which toppled and shattered into 1,000 pieces. He lay there, amidst the wreckage of his art and his ego, a broken man in a broken room. Liam looked down at him, not with triumph, but with a kind of weary finality. "It's over, Julian." He then looked back at Chloe, who was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. "The dinner is over," he said quietly. "I'll send a car for your things in the morning." He turned and walked out of the penthouse, leaving behind a tableau of ruin. He didn't look back. The air outside was cool and clean. He took a deep breath. The demolition was complete. Now the real work could begin, the work of building a new life on a solid foundation. The immediate aftermath was pure chaos, a cacophony of panicked phone calls and shattered illusions. As Liam drove away from the building, the powerful hum of his car the only sound, he could imagine the scene he had left behind. Julian, a sputtering volcano of impotent rage, trying to salvage his dignity from the floor. His executives already calculating their exit strategies, their loyalty evaporating as quickly as their boss's net worth. And Chloe, lost in the rubble, the safety net she had so desperately clung to, now revealed to be a spider's web, and the man she had dismissed as a harmless fly was the spider. The next morning, the news broke officially. Global Axiom's press release hit the financial newswires at 8 a.m. sharp. The city's business community was rocked. Croft Enterprises, long considered an untouchable titan, was revealed to be a house of cards. The stock plummeted in pre-market trading. Lenders who had once courted Julian began calling in their loans. The empire he had built on bravado and debt began to crumble with breathtaking speed. Liam, meanwhile, was at his new office, calm and methodical. He fielded calls from the press with practiced ease, his statements measured and professional. He spoke of Global Axiom's long-term vision for the city, of sustainable development and architectural integrity. He never once mentioned Julian Croft's name. He didn't have to. The story told itself. Around noon, a frantic call came from Chloe. She was at her mother's house, her voice thick with tears and desperation. "Liam, please, you have to talk to me. I don't understand. Everything is falling apart." "No, Chloe," he replied, his voice devoid of anger, but also of warmth. It was the voice of a man stating a fact. "Everything has fallen apart. This is just the settling of the dust. The car I sent should be at the house. Please have your things packed by the end of the day." "But where will I go? What will I do?" she cried. "Julian's life is ruined. He's been fired from his own company. His accounts are frozen." "That is not my concern," Liam said. "He built his life on arrogance and disrespect. This is the natural consequence. As for you, Chloe, you are a resourceful woman. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. You always do." Her breath hitched. "You can't do this, Liam. After all our years together, don't I mean anything to you?" The question hung in the air. He thought of the night of the book barn comment, of her laughter. He thought of her face at the gala, glowing with admiration for Julian. He thought of her hand-wringing panic on the day he told her he was ruined, and how her first thought was not for him, but for her lifestyle. "You meant everything to me," he said, and the use of the past tense was a final, quiet severance. "But you made your choice. You chose a world of surfaces and reflections. I am choosing a world of substance. We are no longer compatible. I have to go, Chloe. I have a meeting." He ended the call. There was no satisfaction in it, only a profound, aching sadness for what they had lost and what she had thrown away. He had given her a choice, and she had chosen the illusion of strength over the real thing. Later that week, Liam received a message from an unexpected source. One of the executives who had been at the penthouse dinner. His name was Marcus Thorne. The message was brief. "Mr. Archer, I owe you an apology. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you at your convenience." Intrigued, Liam agreed to a meeting. Marcus arrived at Liam's office looking humbled. He was a man in his late 50s, his face etched with the stress of the past few days. "Mr. Archer," he began, foregoing a handshake, "I was one of Julian's enablers. I stood by and watched him belittle you. I laughed at his jokes at your expense. I misjudged you completely, and I am profoundly sorry." Liam listened, saying nothing, his face unreadable. "I'm not here to ask for a job," Marcus continued. "I'm here because what you did, it was a masterwork. Not just the business strategy, but the moral clarity of it. You held a mirror up to all of us, and the reflection was ugly. Julian's downfall was his own making, but people like me let him get away with it for years." This was the unexpected ally, not someone who had helped him, but someone who had been awakened by his actions. "Why are you telling me this, Mr. Thorne?" Liam asked. "Because I have information that might be useful to you. Julian is not going to go quietly. He's talking to lawyers. He's trying to find a way to paint you as a corporate raider who acted on insider information gained through your wife. It's a desperate, baseless claim, but it could get messy." Marcus opened his briefcase and laid a file on Liam's desk. "These are records of Julian's financial misconduct going back 5 years. Illegal campaign contributions, paying off inspectors, manipulating property valuations. The city councilman at the dinner was just the tip of the iceberg. I kept my own copies just in case. This is the real reason his company was a house of cards. Your acquisitions just happened to be the gust of wind that blew it down. Use this, and his legal challenges will vanish overnight." Liam looked at the file, then at Marcus. "Why would you give this to me? This could implicate you as well." Marcus shook his head. "My name is on some of it, yes, and I'll face the consequences for that. It's time I did. For too long I chose profit over principle. You've reminded me that a man's integrity is the only asset that can't be bought or sold. This is my first step toward rebuilding my own foundation." Liam stood and for the first time offered the man his hand. "Thank you, Marcus. This is a significant gesture." "No, Mr. Archer," Marcus replied, shaking his hand firmly. "What you did was significant. I'm just cleaning up some of the debris." The file Marcus provided was exactly the weapon Liam needed. He didn't leak it to the press. That would be too loud, too cruel. He simply had his legal team forward a single, damning document from the file to Julian's lawyers. It was a canceled check showing a direct payment to a city zoning official, with Julian's signature clearly visible. The message was clear: pursue this lawsuit and all of this comes out. Within 24 hours, Julian's legal challenge was dropped. He was utterly and completely defeated, his threats silenced, his power extinguished. He was left with nothing but the consequences of his own actions. The weeks turned into months. The dust did not just settle, it was swept away, replaced by the foundations of new projects. Liam's division at Global Axiom thrived. He used his immense resources not to build monuments to ego, but to foster the kind of thoughtful, human-centric architecture he had always believed in. He launched initiatives to develop beautiful, affordable housing. He restored historic buildings that had been left to rot. He was not just building a new skyline, he was giving the city back its soul. He became known not as a ruthless businessman, but as a quiet visionary, a man whose power was expressed through his creations, not through his voice. His reputation for integrity became his most valuable asset. Julian Croft simply faded away. Stripped of his company, his penthouse, and his circle of sycophants, he was a king without a kingdom. The last Liam heard, he had sold his lakeside estate to cover his debts and was living in a modest condominium, a ghost haunting the city he once ruled. There was no gloating on Liam's part, no sense of victory. The downfall of a man like Julian was not a cause for celebration. It was a tragedy of wasted potential and corrosive arrogance. Liam's focus was on building, not demolishing. And then there was Chloe. After a few more desperate, unanswered calls, she fell silent. Liam learned through a mutual acquaintance that she had taken a job at a small marketing firm. She had moved into a small apartment, the kind she had once spoken of with disdain. He occasionally saw her name pop up on social media, tagged in photos at unremarkable bars or restaurants. The vibrant, confident woman who had moved so effortlessly through Julian's world of glamour was gone. In her place was someone who looked diminished, her light dimmed. He felt a pang of sadness for her, but not of regret. She had been given a clear choice between a man of substance and a man of surfaces, and she had chosen poorly. The consequences were hers to live with. One crisp autumn afternoon, about 6 months after the dinner at the penthouse, Liam was walking through a newly opened public park that his division had designed and funded. It was a beautiful space, a green oasis in the heart of the city, with winding paths, thoughtful landscaping, and elegant, simple benches. As he sat on one of them, watching children play on a structure he had sketched himself, a figure approached. It was Chloe. She looked different. The expensive, trend-conscious clothes were gone, replaced by a simple sweater and jeans. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore little makeup. The frantic, anxious energy that had defined her for so long was gone, replaced by a quiet, hesitant stillness. "Hello, Liam," she said, her voice soft. "Can I sit down?" He nodded, gesturing to the empty space beside him. She sat, leaving a careful distance between them. They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sounds the laughter of children and the rustle of autumn leaves. "This park is beautiful," she said finally. "It feels kind. It feels like you." "Thank you," he replied. "That was the goal." "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. "About everything. About us. About me." She took a shaky breath. "I was a fool, Liam. I was so blinded by the glitter, I couldn't see the gold right in front of me. Julian's world, it seemed so powerful, so secure. I was insecure. I thought his strength would make me strong. I didn't realize his strength was an illusion, and that I was leaning on a hollow man." She turned to look at him, her eyes clear and filled with a sorrow that was genuine. "Your strength, it was always quiet. It was in the things you built, in the way you carried yourself. It was in your integrity. I didn't know how to value that. I don't think I knew how to value anything real." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I'm not here to ask you to take me back. I know I destroyed that chance. I destroyed us. I needed to tell you that I see it now. I see you, and I am so, so sorry. For not defending you, for not believing in you, for not being the partner you deserved." Liam listened, his heart aching with a complex mix of old love and new understanding. This was not the woman who had made that frantic call to Julian. This was someone new, someone who had walked through the fire of her own making and had emerged humbled, changed. He saw the first signs of a new foundation being laid within her, one of truth and self-awareness. "I hear you, Chloe," he said, his voice gentle, "and I believe you." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his old leather-bound journal. He had filled it and had started a new one. He opened it to the last empty page. He then handed her the pen from his pocket. "A project isn't over until the final review is complete," he said softly. "What did you learn?" She looked at the pen, then at the empty page, and then back at him. A single tear finally escaped and traced a path down her cheek. It wasn't a tear of self-pity, but of catharsis. She took the pen. Her hand trembled slightly as she began to write. She wrote about humility. She wrote about the difference between value and price. She wrote about how true strength is quiet, and how true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in integrity. As he watched her write, a sense of peace settled over Liam. The demolition was over. The consequences had played out. The anger and hurt had faded, replaced by a quiet, reflective wisdom. He did not know if he and Chloe could ever rebuild what they had. Some structures, once compromised, can never be fully restored. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of hope. Not for the past, but for the future. A future where people could learn and grow, and maybe, just maybe, earn a second chance to build something real. He looked out at the park he had created, at the people enjoying a space built on principle and care. He had won. But the victory wasn't in Julian's fall or his own rise. The victory was in this moment of quiet truth, in the possibility of redemption, and in the enduring power of building things that last. What Chloe wrote on that page was the beginning of her own new blueprint. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness, but a statement of understanding. It was the first honest thing she had built in a very long time. Liam read her words, and for the first time since that fateful day, he saw not the woman who had betrayed him, but a glimpse of the woman he had first fallen in love with. Someone who had simply lost her way, dazzled by the wrong lights. The story of their relationship was far from over, but this was a new and more hopeful chapter. The path to rebuilding trust is long and difficult, and some foundations are too shattered to repair. But her willingness to face the ugly truth about herself, without excuse or deflection, was the strongest material she could possibly build with. It's a powerful reminder that our true worth isn't in our successes or our bank accounts, but in our character. It's in how we treat people, especially when we think no one is watching. It's in the quiet integrity we maintain when faced with the temptation of an easier, more glamorous path. Arrogance builds castles of sand, but humility and honor build fortresses of stone. What do you think? Could you ever forgive a betrayal like the one Chloe committed? Is genuine change and redemption truly possible after such a deep breach of trust? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories that explore the complexities of human nature and the quiet triumph of integrity. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, remember to build your life on a foundation that can withstand any storm.